Okay, again, when you look at polls, you have to understand what it's actually saying. So we're probably still at that average 50-50 that we've been at. But remember, when it comes to population, remember you have to win the Electoral College. So that's why the Democrats aren't talking about the Electoral College. And they're just giving you percentages. And again, both sides of the aisle have their pollsters who call certain zip codes and area codes and all that kind of stuff that they know are going to lean the direction they want them to lean. So the Democrats are making mistakes, the same mistakes. Well, you're backing the immigrants, right? That's going to cause you to fall short on Electoral College, right? There's no way out of cleansing the nation of the BS. It has to happen. And like I said, they were actively doing our veterans dirty, okay, including myself. I came in supporting everything they were, right, except for narcotics distribution. And we're not going to give into that, even if we got a large population of people that thinks, fentanyl's okay because they smoke cannabis, right? No, nothing in the news is actually saying that the Democrats are going to win the presidency. That is, right? And all Trump has to do is kick with those checks, and then it'll pick him back up. If we get to the point where the tariff reform checks are put out, a lot of people will feel that that's something. Again, they're sitting there, what have you done for me lately? Now, I don't know when that plan is, if that's in the works, but a good time also would be after Christmas spending, when everything slows down. Now, there are some inventories and inventory sales that go on somewhere in there, so that could actually work. But again, if they don't have money, right? Now, the Democrats can't win the presidency with supporting the immigrants. That's what kind of killed them last time. Well, it's all fake. A lot of it's fake news or skewed news. So, and that's what keeps them going after ICE and all that also. Right. So that's one of our issues. Well, like I said, somebody's moving PSYOP to keep this thing going. I don't believe. I'd be surprised if the Supreme Court considers standing in front of active operational law enforcement. In a majority, they wouldn't find that. That's not protesting. Protesting is going down to City Hall or maybe even police headquarters and standing in front of it. It's not. You can't protest an active law enforcement operation. Right. It's like a person. It's like what sovereign citizen. They're protesting the traffic stop while they're in the middle of it. Can't do that. Right. It's even worse because they're not even involved in some cases. Right. In most cases, actually. Well, it might be popular in downtown Chicago, or wherever it is in Chicago, but that's not the country. That's not the nation. It's not even all of Illinois. Right. Well, at a certain point, people are like, oh, so you're entitled something? Right. In fact, the majority of the people being deported signed a contract with the government of the United States when they came in here. And they're not upholding their side of the contract. It doesn't say if you keep a job, you get to stay here. I suggest you keep a job. And I suggest that the government made sure anybody that didn't keep a job, let them go. I mean, being unemployed is not a crime, but, you know, if somebody's playing a game like we had, right. Well, part of what happened is that money, and I think the senators know it, a lot of that Biden money for the immigrants went into crony pockets. It's just like, you know, the money going to the Ukraine found its way back around to the Democratic Party and its cronies. Right. Like, you had to probably be Democratic Party to get a contract to dole out that money to begin with. Which I'm not totally against, because Republicans will do the same thing at times. Right. But again, quote unquote, there are limitations. I mean, you don't pay attention to the limitations, and there's lamentations. Right. Thanks, Larry. You all thought it was funny, making false statements and everything else, and of course they took your false statements, but I told you not to believe that that was something that you should do just because somebody in power told you to do it. Right. Thank you, lunch. Again, that's another reason why they bring people that break the law here, because the deep state can get them to make false statements all day. Right. Now, I did watch a video where the two officers were shot, I think, in Virginia. Again, that guy said everything. I never saw it before. So again, he's saying what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is be careful somebody isn't trying to whoop them up on purpose. Again, idiot Democrats will whoop them up just to make Trump look bad, but then it'll, you know, people will be like, we don't want him here. Again, a backfire. That's what's happening to them. Right. No, money has a metaphysical power to a certain degree, but I think it's kind of, illegal money is losing a lot of that power at this point. Right. But a lot of people took bribes. They won't call it bribes, but right. If you're a rich immigrant, you can, even an illegal immigrant, you can pay to have somebody taken out and pay to have cops harass people, things like that. That's what's going on. Thank you, Larry. Turn this on here. Make me a burger here, a fake burger. So again, they're supposed to have you when you bring. It wasn't. This is the point, and I think the president's missing the mark. It wasn't wrong to bring who was supposed to come here, and it could have been in the thousands. We don't know what the answer is at this point. Apparently, there was somebody that was deported, and he, you know, said that he worked with the Americans, and there was no proof that he ever worked with the Americans. Right. So again, we don't know what the truth is of all of it, but there are people that did deserve to come here. But when they come here, you have to force assimilation if they won't assimilate. Right. So essentially, this guy, you know, is going through a lot of trauma, a lot of bad time. But they don't understand. You got to drive with insurance. You got to do, and when you don't have insurance, so what we needed was some sort of governing authority instead of this, you know, the scam shit that went on. I'm sure they passed out a lot of money, and it made it into the coffers of the people that, you know. What I'm hearing actually is that immigrant thing, that just open door policy, actually caused more religious societies and people to commit crimes because of that money was just everywhere than anything in the history of such things. They're so unaccounted for. So over, a year later, first they wouldn't do it. Then within a year, they're pocketing, like I said, 1,000 for you, 1,000 for me, and they write it up that they gave some immigrant that's untraceable $2,000. 1%. And these are like, Catholic charity people and stuff like that. So it said it caused people to fall because it was just so recklessly run. And it said, wasn't in the beginning, but it took a little while, and they just like, hey, I need $1,000 because inflation was crazy. Remember, right? Thank you, Larry. Making sure. Sometimes I wonder if Putin's working with Trump, man. Anywhere Putin goes, Trump is lucky. So again, there was a lot of stuff I've said over the years, and I was talking, I spoke about what was going on. Again, agents were, oh, that's not happening. He's just crazy. Well, agents were part of the people paying the money to the immigrants. Right. And I don't know how many are left and how many are gone or anything like that, but, some of them lost their job. Right. Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Larry. No, I think it's really just the deportation thing is just starting, right? To really hit just the average American is how important it is to just get this thing done, right? So again, when you look in the news, you're seeing skewed information. It's giving you the numbers. Remember how you thought Trump was going to lose? The same thing. Right. And the politicians don't care because they're just looking for money. And they do that, and then they get money, and right. It's just talking the population numbers versus electoral college. Right. And again, they're also polling immigrants. Right? And they could be, what? Some of those polls might only be immigrants, just about. You're like 70% immigrant heavy. They don't care, man. They just play their game. They get paid to lie. Pollsters pretty much get paid to lie, even Republican pollsters. Where they need to lie, they have to lie, and they become a famous pollster. Some are actually intelligence agents. So again, fit hand in glove. Spies lie, pollsters lie. Sometimes the spies are pollsters. Sometimes the pollsters are spies. I'm sorry. So I don't foresee that we're actually at a point where the Democrats are going to win the presidency. But Trump does have to be careful, and the administration has to be careful of some of the peripheral issues that they're not addressing. Thanks, Larry. Well, because the bottom line is, people don't want to go backwards. They don't want to have this idea. Oh, if Trump deported you, come on in. We got some programs for you. Right. And like I said, what that does is that causes us not to be able to provide the nation they're living in with sufficient support. Right. I agree. Let's see. Now my tomatoes, one of them got bad. I don't know how it did that. So I don't think Mom Pa Kettle, again, remember Mom Pa Kettle isn't going to come out there and protest. So, well, they're saying, like, if you look at it, 51% of voters this age, that age, want. But again, this is the same information that you had last election. It's not any different, right? As far as they want a social democrat. And then again, how correct is that poll? Right. But it's the same tired information from the last election. Right. They say young people, but young people from where? If I call California, New York, right. Right. And again, the young people are more liberal, but if we get to the point, with the immigrant, if you can articulate the immigrant issue well enough. Remember the millennials couldn't get jobs? That's what it was. It wasn't the immigrant millennials. They had jobs. Right. Right. So again, there's a middle ground where all this meets and it's well, but we're outside that middle ground. Right. I'm not here to bash either side, as far as employment and immigration, but if we work on legitimate immigration, then things begin to work, and then people that don't want immigrants at all can't point at the violations of law, because the people that come here are like, well, no, I got to work, I got to wake up tomorrow, I don't go out to the club and get drunk and frequent sex trafficking. I have to go to work tomorrow. Right. Well, I don't care what Trent Dorega says. I'm calling the police. Because again, they're not calling the police now. Right. And that's making a mess in their communities. But everybody's afraid to do it because why? All the crooks are here. Agreed, Larry. So, some of the people who are afraid are immigrants also. Right. And again, they're angry because they're getting deported too. But again, this is what causes that problem. Once we get people here that are not interested in breaking law, then things will change. I mean, a 9 to 5 is nice, but that's not like some reason that you get to stay here or the be-all of who you all are. I spent my time trying to educate you in the Southwest, and you didn't want to hear it. That's fine. Thank you, Larry. Jealous taste here. Hi from me. It's great when it tastes great without cheese. There's from England. Ketchup and mayo. extra sauce. Again, I don't suggest protesting the locations these people are protesting. So that begins when you start. Oh, a veteran got hit with it. Well, you're not supposed to be there. You protest somewhere else. Right. And to tell you the truth, that priest and that veteran is protesting. They have no clue. Right. They're backing a system that keeps the narcos in power. Because those people aren't going to complain about it. And if they do, they get green cards. So, and they'll probably be eventually moved out of those communities. Again, you all sided with corruption. Well, you could have already had your green card and been on the list of government helps. Right. So, you went with corruption. Right. And parties at the casinos. If Trump makes a serious dent in narcotics available on the street, they'll put him in any day. 100%. I thank the liberal for taking care of people that are addicted, but it's a two-sided coin. Right. You got to do both. Well, they ate up all the money that we would use for serious foreign aid. Again, they may be doling the money out in other locations so it doesn't go to programs that stop the narco, because maybe the narco money suits them fine. Right. Because their kids aren't addicted to narcotics. Right. Well, that was delicious. It was amazing. I pretty much inhaled it. There's no other way to eat that. It's so good you have to inhale it. Kind of put this stuff away here. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Maybe I'd have found a place also, but I should have been. I was thinking of pulling up stakes, and who knows? I may not have found this location before if I would have arrived early. Right. But I wanted to get out of Kansas like last March and break my lease. Probably, if I would have went with my plan, it wouldn't have cost me any more than it cost to move this time, because I would have got rid of everything. Right. I guess the LDS door being a false sense of security. Right. That's what they got. One of the things they got paid for. Bud money. Dirty pieces of silver. Yeah. Thunder. Right. The majority of narcotics that are on the reservation come from immigrants. So, there's only so many immigrants that are, supported by Native Americans this go around. They got a couple things going on where they said that the reservation ID looked funky and maybe fraudulent. And again, I would be sensitive about that. But again, they have a job to do. All right. But I think some of the immigrants have worn out their welcome because they show up at the reservation, right? And for some reason, the FBI didn't say, hey, don't let these people in your reservation. They just said, don't let Larry in your reservation. Right. All right. Every time they showed up, everybody's addicted to narcotics, and, they have to try to beat the narcotics game, That's what the biggest telling thing is, who they do let in. That it's just a game. They're getting paid to stop my life. That's okay. They'll all burn in hell. Thunder. So Miss CIA has been identified in the manner that I identified it by Mr. Mullins. She knew what she was doing. Right. But she goes, I'm shocked and scared, and well, that's why you're not the Border Patrol commander at large, because you would be very ineffective. They're not scared of such things. Right. So I'm like looking at it going, yeah, okay, you sound like every other chicken shit American. I mean, it sucks, but, to fix things, the alternative is worse. That's the bottom line. But, not for a Democrat that, is greasy and wanting greasy money. Right. Who's got the CIA chip in her head? The takeover plan. Mullins alluded that she wants to be president. I guess his name's Mullins. I don't know, Munkins, Mickens. What's his name? say, guys? Maybe I've got it right. No, Mullins is the singer, right? The Christian singer. Mullen, that's it. Richie Mullins is the Christian singer. The weird part is I mourned his death, but I don't present mind of it. I can tell inside that, like, when he died, I mourned it. I had no idea what was going on in my body, but right. Here, we'll give you a yeah healed. So the governor here of why is Bondi? Why do we have a screenshot of Bondi? I have no idea how that got there. Planting screenshots of Bondi on my computer. What? I must have posted something. Actually, there's a couple. There's another one. Larry. So he's going to take care of small businesses. Right. Yeah, business models are very important. Paying attention to legitimate business models. So you see, he's a socialist, but he knows the only way for social things to work is to make the business work. Right. It's going to work. We're going to invest money and we'll get somewhere. And once I say it takes a little while to get rolling, but. All right. So here's this shooting. Mike Lee's got it on this page. I don't know. Mike Lee's getting a little weird. Him and his LDS buddies. Like a college fraternity of freaks or something. They haze one another all day. They try to use that as an excuse, the old hazing excuse. No, that woman put her sexuality out there. There were others. Right. If I was younger, it would have affected me more. Right. Because I was looking for a woman, so I'd be more open. Right. Got shot in the arm. But everything he says is what I was speaking about. Right? There's a lot going on. Well, again, it's not to say that they shouldn't be, or we don't know how this guy would have been if he was brought over responsibly and put through programs that helped him stay employed, held him he really believed in the law enforcement. Be careful, don't drive without a license. Right. So again, immerse them in Americanism classes, and hopefully it takes. So again, the church, we should be speaking to the clergy on what's going on. Right. Assimilate, right? I lost the assimilate word. I gave it back. So you have to explain the overall situation, that it's costing so much money, that our money's being wasted on bullshit scenarios. People are just intent on committing crimes. I know some of them have jobs, some of them go to church, but they're not the people that the church thinks they are. They don't have an obligation to call on a narcotics distributor, but again, sometimes they don't see narco money as being something that's bad. As far as hey, if I get some of their money, that's good, right? Right, that kind of thing. And it's killing because they're not serious. It's killing the programs and the social support networks. Right? And again, if they were in their own country, we could for what we're paying for one immigrant here, we could pay for one immigrant for their lifetime in what we pay in 1 year. Right? Right. I mean, he's living in an apartment for $2,000 a month. How are you going to afford that? I mean, Washington State and California are two very expensive places. Then other guys in Virginia, right? Somebody should have said, hey, you have to move where it's cheaper. Right. I agree, Larry. There's jobs for immigrants at a certain stage of the game. We agree. But again, the mess that was created, it's just a mess. When the Trump administration was confronted with a legitimate situation, such as the Korean factories, they worked on it. Right? It didn't happen overnight, but they worked on it and got it fixed. Because that's a legitimate issue. Right. Again, I don't know about some of the deportations. There's officers that don't know, that work ICE. They can't say anything, but they look at it and say, well, that Vietnamese lady, we don't have to deport her unless there's something in her history that they know about outside of what's already there, because it wasn't her fault that she didn't get to move forward in life when she was to be deported. Right? That was between the United States and Vietnam. And she wasn't here illegally. She just committed a crime. Well, that's where you're going to have trouble, I think, in the Supreme Court on a case-by-case, maybe even appellate courts. Right? Because, again, Trump says Biden this, Biden that. At a certain stage of the game, Trump is Biden and Biden is Trump because of the U.S. government. Right. But that's, those cases are few and far between. We agree. Thank you, Larry. Well, again, legal immigration is the preferred method. But because illegal immigration was allowed at such a bombastic rate that there's just no other way to handle this. Right. And whatever cases have some sort of standing, such as I think that Vietnamese woman has standing, they'll work out in the court system. They'll work it out. I mean, her husband's going to sue, and eventually they're going to say, okay, probably. Right. Just has to run its course through the court system. Only because it's really not her fault, as long as she did what she was supposed to after the fact. Well, she's a lot older. She has a family. She has she had, and again, some people do have that, but again, you come here and you overstay your visa, that's a little bit of a different case there. She tried to work with the system. Well, but the case where you come here in 2021 and Biden lets you in and gives you an amnesty number and you don't have an amnesty case is something completely different. Right. That's the problem. Is the Biden people let people in that didn't have a case. So there's no reason to leave them to sit around so they can all abscond. That's pretty much what's happening. Right. That's why they're dismissing your cases, or the cases, because there's no case. You're not going to sit around for another year or something, or 2 years till you get into court, and then when they go to get, then you don't show up for that last hearing because you're not going to get your thingy, right? So again, and then if the argument is and then they run into the street and everybody screams about them running into the street. So a lot of these judges, they have to look at the overall picture, because you're saying they should be released, but if we release them, then we have to detain them later, and they run into the street, and you say, but they ran into the street. Well, that's because you released them. Right. Again, when you nitpick with individual cases, that's something, a little different than looking at the whole thing of what's actually happening. And then you don't know. I mean, immigrants, they'll tell you whatever they need to tell you, what they think they need to tell you to get somewhere. Again, that's why their systems are failed in their countries. Right. Again, the money they brought here, the legal money, that was killing the United States. People taking bribes everywhere. We're still stuck in it, but as far as the way the Democrats are moving and what the polls are actually saying, I don't think they're going to take the presidency. I think, they may take some governor positions, but those always kind of go back and forth. And the way you treat the government employees, there's no way you're going to take Virginia. Right. And I don't know where she stands on a lot. We don't even know where she stands. I mean, it isn't like black and white when somebody's a Democrat when it comes to, immigration and things like that. There are people in those communities. Virginia's always been kind of illegal immigrant haven. Like before the country had it, Virginia had it. And of course we found, remember when the congressman used to have the congresswoman or congressman had the unlawful immigration thing going on. The illegal immigrant was working for them, and then they, it was like shameful. They were all shamed, and then walked out or something, resigned. But it was like Virginia and stuff. And that's where the sex crime really started. The immigrant sex crime in this nation was Virginia. California too. Right, even for the East Coast. I was studying that for a while. Again, in immigrant communities, sex crime is not as reported as much as other places. And that's what led, to a lot of the sex trafficking when the numbers increased, because people don't report it. Well, now, I don't think this guy hated America when he came here. So again, don't get carried away into something that makes no sense. The shooter. Right. He may have been harassed also. But again, people from Afghanistan, they don't have that. They don't have the edge that they need to survive here in the United States when they're targeted. Right. Because the goal is to get them to be violent. Right. and you throw them in jail. But I had immigrants try to do that to me. So. Again, that's why assimilation is important. So you understand things and then you don't end up losing or over the line. So again, Biden brought all those people, but he didn't provide the process for them. Right. And again, nothing wrong with bringing them. You have to vet them and all those type of things. I was telling them how to move them to the United States. It was proper when you fight a war with them. Right. And like Trump said, he wouldn't have got rid of Bagram, and I don't believe he should get rid of Bagram. That's crazy. Right. That's where they screwed up. They should have been flying out of Bagram. Right. But bringing people here, that's traditional in the United States when something like that happens. So, but again, what do you do to make it work? Right. I'm sure a younger Trump thought it was proper to bring the Vietnamese here after the war. Same kind of thing. Same kind of thing. We had a bad Vietnamese and Laotian gang problem for a while. Right. Again, the numbers weren't as large as we're seeing now, and that's the problem. They let it get out of control. That's pretty funny. Immigration and Nationality, Section 212F. So when it's time to F them, this is what you do. Right. All right. Like, what's going on with Utah? Right. Rude people. Right. The whole entire thing, a big part of it is to get people to self-deport. Now, this is illegal. You can't block law enforcement from leaving the parking garage. That's not a protest. Can never be considered a protest. Right. I agree. Well, the problem is you can't prosecute all those people in those cities. So what do they have to do? They need to bring the military in to just simply clear the way and keep it cleared. There are certain parts that aren't going to end well when I told them not to do it, but not the immigration thing is going to end well. Right. I think that's going to be the one thing that keeps the Democrats out. Right. Well, because no matter what they hate about Trump, they don't want to go back to that same bullshit. Right. Where they drive by in their 10-year-old car, and all the immigrants are driving around in brand new vehicles because they give a shit about drug money. They give a shit about sex trafficking. Right. Right. Meanwhile, your kid's out on the street homeless, hooked on all sorts of shit that nobody knows what's even in it anymore because there's so much shit they bring into this country. I warned you. I did my best. I got some melee in Germany. Yeah, I think that's a psyop. I don't think Hegseth did it, but Well, it's being discredited. They said Hegseth gave a verbal order to kill everybody. Right. And now the Pentagon denies it. Well, can't believe everything somebody tells me. I'll see it. I think the action in Venezuela is going to be the most popular action in the history of such actions. Because we're getting rid of narcotics. Everybody sees it. Well, we're supposed to just put it to a court system that can't handle it? Right. I mean, these people own territory in their homelands, and they're trying to take over our territory with no-go zones. Right. What are you saying? There's somebody saying ICE is being raiding Somalian hangouts and clubs. Here we go. These are places where crime is going on, where they bribe people so that they can engage in this crime for the last 5-10 years. Right. So they're just going in there because there's crime. Right. They act like it's all about ICE. It's about the whole mission. Right. Hopefully, you pick a couple of informants up in that raid. Right. Guess we're getting closer to 0 hour. Now, a CIA officer knows exactly what she's doing by putting those thoughts out there and just kind of floating it. Right. Do it to me all the time. Right. All you need to do. So then they'll increase the stress. But they know the stress is going to increase for our soldiers. And you see here, the thought of our soldiers worrying. Our law enforcement worrying. The pressure mounting. You have a right not to fight. Right. Pinko. She's the first Pinko I've seen in a long time. How the hell she get in the CIA? She's a Pinko. Actually, I remember a time when that was no longer disqualified. I'm like, what? She's a Pinko. They're Pinkos. I think I was still in the government. I was saying, well, I can't be held to. Maybe right after I got out, I think. That's what happened to Pinkos got in there. Right? And took over. No, it isn't just a liberal. It's a commie. I mean, a real commie. Like, okay, so most of your socialists aren't commies, like from the Cold War, right? They kind of shifted what everything meant. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.